Hello and welcome to an exclusive hour-long programme with me, Alex Belfield, talking to an international megastar. Andy Williams, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
There aren't many international megastars left, really, are there?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not used to megastar, but I guess some people call me that.
Well, I think so. We just opened there with Music to Watch Girls By, and when you hear a tune like that, we all know it, we sing along with it, and it was by you. How do you feel about that when we're hearing your music?
Well, I like that particular song, yeah. My favorite, though, of the whole group is Can't Take My Eyes Off You, because that, to hear the whole audience sing along on I Love You, Baby, that's a big thrill. And the whole audience at the Royal Albert Hall would sing along with that. And I understand at football games they even sing along.
What I also found amazing about songs like Can't Take My Eyes Off You is the history of them. I just went to see Jersey Boys last week.
I haven't seen it. No, I hear it's great. I haven't seen it. You know, my record was big in England. But, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, their record was the big one all around the world. Mine was in an album. And for some reason, and I don't know how or why, whether a disc jockey started playing mine and then others caught on, but it's very unusual to have a hit of somebody else's material, which is what that is.
What do you think makes a great song? I mean, with the song we just mentioned, Can't Take My Eyes Off You, is it that dum 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 da 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 da? We all kind of know it.
I think that chorus is a great chorus. The hook on that is terrific. It's a well-written song, easy to sing. It's easy for everybody to say, I love you, baby. It's easy to sing along. There are some songs that are sing-along songs anyway. Of course, if you go to Ireland, everything is a sing-along song. They sing to everything. The last time I was there, I couldn't believe that everybody knew all the words to all my songs. And they love to sing, so they just sang all the time. And sometimes you just stand there and hold the mic out. And let it.
Do you ever get bored of singing the same old songs? I mean, that's the problem with some big stars. They almost resent what makes them popular.
No, I never have. Moon River I've done forever and ever, because that's my signature song, at least in the States. And it's such a good song. It's such a well-written song. Henry Mancini wrote the arrangement that I do now. It isn't the record version that I made, although that's nice too. But it's such a great song. The melody is wonderful, and the lyrics by Johnny and Mercer are just they're timeless. They're not on the beat. I mean, they're not Moon and June lyrics. They're poetry. Moon River, wider than a mile, I'm crossing you in style someday. You dream maker, you heartbreaker. Wherever you're going, I'm going your way. Whatever that means, but it's a poem.
I was just listening to you in the car coming in, and I've played these songs on the radio for so many years, and you don't seem to oversing them. Was that deliberate when you started?
No, it wasn't deliberate. That's just the way I am. I mean, that's just the way I sing. I've sung since I was a little boy. I never had any lessons. Of course, when you're little and you're in a group and you're singing on the radio, there's always people around to help you, teach you how to breathe properly and all those things that most singers learn on the way. But I just sang. That's just the way I sing. And I never tried to sing like anybody else. Fortunately, I don't sound like everybody else. And it just happened. I was very lucky that I had a voice that sounded different than most anybody else's. And it's recognizable.
You've got me thinking about Can't Take My Eyes Off You. Let's take that record now. It's off your new album, The Very Best of Andy Williams. We'll hear that, and then we'll come back and ask about the feeling of hearing yourself on the radio. We're back with Andy Williams, an exclusive hour-long programme. It's Alex talking to one of the world's most famous stars, whose music seems to transcend all generations. I mean, you'll hear that in pubs and clubs, as well as on the radio of gold stations and young stations as well. It's just a classic record. What makes a song last?
I don't really know. It has to be a good song. First of all, any good record has to start off with a good song. All of the records that I've had are generally melodic, because I'm a melodic singer. I'm not a one-note samba kind of guy. Melodies are important to me. I know that I can have a pretty voice and I can sing pretty lyrical kind of melodies. And that's what I look for first, and then I look for the lyric. And if you get a combination of three things, a good arrangement, a good performance, and a good song, then you have a good chance of having a hit. But they're hard to predict, too.
Yeah, I don't want to upset you with this next question, Mr. Williams, but the songs that have got away, which songs did you turn down and say, no, that'll never work?
Well, I almost turned down Can't Get Used to Losing You, because I thought that was a losing song. And I didn't think there was enough there. It's a very simple song. Guess there's no use in hanging around. It's a very childlike song. And then the chorus is great. Can't get used to losing you. And everybody can sing along with that. But it's a very simple song. And the producer of that record, Bob Mercy, said, I think this is a hit. He heard something in it that I didn't hear, and that's what he was going to do with the arrangement, with the plucking strings, the pong, ping, dong, ding, dong, ding, that very arresting sound that comes every like 4 bars. Bang, bang, that thing. And I think that helped make the record a hit. I don't think it necessarily was the song. I think it was the chorus in that again, that everybody could sing along with.
Does it ever become normal when you switch on the radio and it's still being played all these years later after you first recorded it?
Well, when I first recorded them, I don't think they're so swell. And then years later, when I listen to them, after they've been hits, then you say, oh, well, that's why it was a hit, because it's a great record. And the songs that I do over here, I generally don't do in the States. Solitaire was never a hit in the States for me. Nobody ever played Home Lovin' Man in the States. My record of Can't Help Falling in Love was a much bigger record here than it was over there. So most of these things, It's So Easy was never played over there. So when I come here, it's fun to sing these songs that I don't get a chance to do in the States. And then, good songs are good songs. I'm happy that I'm not associated with Itsy Bitsy Polka Dot Bikini, because I would hate to have to sing that every night.
When you're over here, is it Can't Get Used to Losing You or Can't Get Used to Losing You?
Well, when I first came over, the very first time, I called the agent over here, his name is Vic Lewis, and I said, would you get me 2 or 3 backup singers? If you can get the ones that Tom Jones uses, that would be great. But they should be, Tom Jones kind of thing. So the first rehearsal was in a church, because that was the only place that I guess I could find to rehearse with this band and stuff. And the girls got up and they sang, can't get used to losing you no matter what I try to do. Going to live my whole life through loving you. I said, wait a minute. What? I got Vic aside. I said, what about these Tom Jones singers? He said, well, you told me to get them. I said, Tom Jones singer, not Jim Jones singer. Tom Jones. So they were right out of the church choir, and then, we couldn't use them.
This could be a new tour, couldn't it? Cathedral Andy Williams concert.
Can't get used to losing you no matter what I try to do.
I'd love to hear that version. All right, let's hear the original. This is an exclusive hour-long program with Andy Williams back next, talking about his life, career, and we'll talk about his childhood. How do you remember the words to your songs?
Well, sometimes I don't. I've sung various versions of MacArthur Park over the years, because I never could figure out what those words were about anyway. And I don't know whether Jimmy Webb, who wrote it, was in this world when he wrote it, but I've forgotten that lyric a dozen times when I've sung it. In different places. If I had a record of all the different ones and hooked them together, it wouldn't make any sense at all.
And that's the problem then when you're a big famous star with hit records, because if the public know them better than you do, they're going to work it out, aren't they?
Well, I went to Japan the first time, and I forgot the words to one of the songs, and a lot of giggles, because they all knew the words. They had them written down on a book or something, and when they came in, all of the translated versions from Japanese to English, and they knew them, and they would giggle when I'd make a mistake. Or you said the wrong word.
Is it fun being internationally successful? There's a lot of travel involved, which isn't much fun. And then there's hotel rooms where we're recording an interview today. It's a nice hotel room, but it gets a bit tiresome, this life on the road, doesn't it?
Well, it does, and I got so tired of it about 18 years ago, where I was just traveling so much. And I just felt like if I take the microphone in my hand again and start singing, I'll go puke. I'm going to get very ill. And my brother Don at that point was down in Branson, Missouri. It's a little hillbilly town in Missouri in the Ozarks. And he called, and he was representing a singer then called Ray Stevens, who was a country artist, wrote and sang funny songs. Guitarzan was one of his big hits, and Mr. Businessman and The Streak, but he was a very brilliant kind of funny writer. He said, you ought to come down and see what's happening to Branson, Missouri. It's a little town, like 6,000 people. They have 2 million tourists, or they have 4 million tourists. They come in to see these country artists. And you ought to come down. He said, I know you're tired of traveling and you don't want to do that anymore, but come down and build a theater and have people come to you instead of you're going to see them. And that sounded like a pretty good idea, but I thought, I mentioned it to my wife. I'd been married 3 days, and I came down here to see Branson. And I came back to New York to our apartment, and I said, I'm thinking of going down to Branson, Missouri and building a theater. And she just said, why would you want to give up your career? I mean, you're famous, you've got some money. We have this wonderful apartment above the Museum of Modern Art. We have great friends. We have a home in Beverly Hills. Why would you want to give it all up and go down to I said, I just want to start something new, completely new. Take you down to a new town, build a theater, build a house, live in a completely different place, and just be with you and our dogs.
And it's a big theater. It's 2,000 seats.
Yeah, it's a big theater, and it's a beautiful theater. I figured that if I'm going to come down here and do that, I'm not going to build a country theater. I'm going to build a theater that represents what I am. I'm a pop singer. And so I built it in such a way that I could house my art collection in it. It could be a combination of art gallery and theater and be very different. And my brother said, I think, people, I said, why would they want to hear me anyway? They're country music fans. They said, well, you've been on television for 50,000 years and you've made a billion albums and all. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they want to come and see you? And so I went down and I saw Ray Stevens open his theater. And I got thinking more about maybe this would be something different to do. Never built a theater before. Built houses before. But I just thought, yeah, I'll do that.
How often do you perform in the theater now?
Well, for about 13 years, I did 12 shows a week for 9 months in a row. And then I thought, after I got thinking about it, I think, why am I working this hard? And by that time, the theater was paid off, a couple times. And so then I went to doing 1 show a day, which was a lot easier. And lately, I've been this last year, I just worked September, October, November, and December. And I'd bring in the Righteous Brothers, Bill Medley, and Paul Revere and the Raiders. You remember them?
Yeah.
Great rock and roll acts. Brought them in. They did very well. They're there now when I'm gone.
In Vegas or in Branson, they need huge names that people know. So there's an expectation there that they're going to see somebody who sounds like the records. Do you still sound like you did when you recorded them?
Pretty much. I mean, I have an orchestra that isn't large, but it's got a lot of synthesizers in it. And you put a brass synthesizer and a live brass instrument, like a trumpet or a trombone, and suddenly it sounds like a real brass section. You can do the same with the reed section. You do the same with the string section. Have a violinist that plays along with it, and it takes the edge off of the sound of a synthesizer. And it sounds amazingly like my records do. And people don't really care when they look up there that, well, that's a lot of music coming out of 10 people.
And as long as you're there, if you weren't there, they'd care.
Oh, well, I think they would care. They would care. But I mean, what they're really interested in, I think, when they come to see me is they want to hear me sing well, and they want to hear it, like they're used to hearing it.
All right, we're going to come back next and talk about your childhood. We will get round to talking about you. Too much chit-chat, you see. We're having too much fun here. We're here with Andy Williams for an exclusive...
Play the music. Play the music.
We're here for an exclusive hour-long programme. Let's take another track off this new album, the very best of Andy Williams. Born Free's a great track, isn't it?
Yeah, I like Born Free. It was a good song from a movie. I've done a lot of movie songs, as you probably know. Love Stories from a movie. Oh, Moon River, of course. Wine and Roses. Charade. They're all from movies written by Henry Mancini, basically. I sang them on the Academy Award show 3 years in a row, and each year that I was on it won. the song I sang. So my mother thinks I've won 3 Academy Awards. Try and tell your mother that you haven't. It's not easy.
Let's take Moon River by Andy Williams. Born Free by our special guest today, Andy Williams, here on your favourite local radio station. It's Alex Belfield talking to an international legend. Let's go back to Andy Williams, the boy, before all this fame hit. What were you like?
Well, I lived in a small town, a large family, a very loving family. It was during the Depression years. I was born in 1927, right in the end of the Depression, and it hit America quite hard. A lot of people were out of work, thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people you'd see drifting across the Midwest, finding someplace, to go where they could start over again or find a job or do something. And so we were poor, like everybody was poor, and we didn't know it. We thought we were just fine as long as we had something to eat. We were fine. And children don't know they're poor. You wear your hand-me-down clothes, and as long as they're neat and clean, and they've been mended, and socks are all matching. Nobody cares. Kids don't care. And we started singing in the church, and my father had this idea that we could become singers and become popular group, and got us into Des Moines, Iowa, and on the radio. And we did radio for years and years and years, and maybe 10 years before we moved to California. Then I didn't start singing solo until much later.
It seems interesting to me, having read the first part of the autobiography, how the relationship with your brothers and family led to the church and the community there, which led to the act in the end. Do you really value the time that you had with your family? And you talk about the Depression. I mean, really, it didn't matter because you were happy and you were together.
Right. We were a very loving, together family. And my father and mother were both terrific people. And my father's dream was that his boys were going to be on the radio and become stars. And he just kept at it until we eventually did. And then when the act broke up, which all family acts do, sometime along the way, usually it's the younger one, like Donny Osmond or Michael Jackson, and in my case me, decides to go on. The rest may get into something else. So, I didn't know what else to do. That's all I could say. I knew is sing. I knew I could sing. I knew I had a nice voice, a pretty voice, and could sing in tune. And so I struggled like crazy for about 3 years, playing in really dumb, awful places because I had no name at all, and I had no record. I was at the mercy of the musicians in the place where I was going to go sing, because I didn't play the guitar, I didn't play piano, I couldn't accompany myself. Didn't have the money to bring in an accompanist. So I'd bring my little bag of music and go to these little places. And there was absolutely, nobody knew who the hell I was, and it was very difficult. And I bombed everywhere I went. But I got $300 a night. I had to take a bus to go where I was going. And I couldn't sit down in my tuxedo because I couldn't afford to have it pressed every night. So I changed in locker rooms and wherever I could go, sometimes a meat locker. Hang up my suit in the meat locker. It always looked nice, nice and crisp. I was freezing to death, but then finally I got on television, the Steve Allen Tonight Show, and then because of that exposure, I was able to get a record contract, and I wanted to be with Archie Bleyer because he had the Everly Brothers, and they were getting hit records, and I wanted a hit record. So first one he gave me was Butterfly, and I thought, well, I can't sing that song. It's not my style at all. He said, well, then I'll get somebody else. We just won't have a hit. I said, well, I want a hit. He said, well, sing this song. So I got an Elvis Presley record, and I listened to it. And I knew I wouldn't sound like Elvis, but I had to sound something like different than I was used to doing. So the next day I went in the studio and said, you tell me you love me, you say you be true, and said, you butterfly. And he was right. It was a big hit. It was a big hit over here, big hit in America. First big hit I had.
Did you always stick out from your brothers?
No, you don't. When you're in a group, you don't stick out. You want to blend.
So why you? Why were you the one that carried on when they gave up?
I don't know. They wanted to get out of the business. They wanted it. My brother Don wanted to be an agent. He said, I don't like this singing all the time. I want to have other people work for me. And my brother Bob just wanted to go in the real estate business with my dad.
Yeah.
And Dick wanted to sing with the band, so he went with Harry James for a while, a couple of years. And I didn't know any direction. I just figured I'd go to New York and try and see what I could do. And it was difficult. But fortunately, a friend of mine who was producing the new Steve Allen Tonight Show came into the club I was working in and said, "Boy, you're singing great. Why don't you audition for Steve Allen?" I said, "Who is he?" I didn't know who he was. He's an unknown comic, but very funny. And so I went and sang for him. And he said, "God, I love it, the way he sings." I said, "Book him." So I alternated with Steve Lawrence, another great singer. And I was on 2 nights one week and 3 nights the next. And then, as I say, I got a record deal. And then once you get hit records, then everything changes.
We're back with Andy Williams, another great song from his latest album, which is a best of. Why the best of? I mean, you're not finishing, are you? This isn't where it ends.
No, the last will be the last of Andy Williams, and then after that it'll be the last of the last of the last of the very, very best Andy Williams. And then 10 years after I'm dead, they'll say, "Here's the 10th anniversary of the last album of the last of the very best of the," you know. It'll go on forever, I guess.
Well, Cher's been doing her first last tour for ages, hasn't she?
Well, no, I don't do that. I mean, I've never said I'm through with touring, although I am. But I don't tour anymore.
And it's a shame because we do want to see you live, and it's nice to see a legend. How do you view yourself? Are you comfortable with me calling you that?
No, I'm not. Well, I'm used to it. You know, I'm used to hearing it. But, you know, legend sounds like you're ancient.
All right, let me give you some figures to prove why I'm right and you're wrong. You are a legend. 18 gold albums. Well, you've got to be a legend if you had 18 gold albums.
Yeah, and 3 platinum.
So you did know that. How about this? You opened Caesar's Palace in '66. I mean, you were the first star to open the most legendary casino and hotel in the world.
Right, and then I've worked there maybe 20 times. And when you work in those places, you sometimes stay for 6 weeks, at least you used to, you know. So they were long engagements.
You did the Grammys. You presented it between 71 and 77. I mean, you've done so many things. This is what I'm getting at. You don't get invited to do all those things I just mentioned and be successful at them unless you've got some form of credibility. So do you think it's luck, determination, or how are you still here today?
Well, I think you have to be determined to stick with it until you get a break. And then if you're lucky enough to be ready, you know, when you get that break. And I had enough experience singing in dumb places and doing on and singing with my brothers and with Kay Thompson and stuff that I was ready. When I had a chance to get to sing for Steve Allen and get on the Tonight Show, I was ready. It's the same with the Osmond Brothers. When they had a chance to have a hit record like they did with One Bad Apple, well, they were ready because they'd been on my show for 6 years, and they learned how to dance, and they learned how to sing modern harmony, and I suggested that they take up instruments like the Beatles, and oh, great idea. And they went out and they got instruments, and you know, within a year they were playing great. I mean, they were very talented. But when they were ready, when they got a break, they were ready, and they went out and they just tore up the whole place.
So it's your talent meeting the opportunity and then going for it once you get it.
That's right.
And for me, I always associate you with Christmas. For so many years of growing up, you are Mr. Christmas. You were there every Christmas day. Does that bother you? Is that okay?
No, I love Christmas. It's the best time of the year for me and for most Americans, everybody around the world who celebrate Christmas. I did a show, my show was on for 9 years. So 9 times Christmas comes around, you know, what are you going to do? You do a Christmas show. And after the first year, I started bringing my family on. My brothers and I got back together and we would sing on the show. My mother and father were alive then. They would come on the show. My sister, her children, my wife, Claudine, and our kids. And people liked seeing the family grow every year, the children getting bigger. And so the ratings were always great on the Christmas show. I mean, better than they were the rest of the year. And, you know, then after the show went off the air, I still did Christmas shows, specials, for another couple of years. And then I started doing Christmas tours. I'm loaded with Christmas.
Well, it is the most wonderful time of the year, isn't it?
It is the most wonderful time of the year. And I do the Christmas show, which I will start in November, which I've done now since, well, I've been in Branson now. This will be the 18th season. So it's a lot of Christmas shows.
Let's play that record. Has it been difficult for you going back right to the beginning and bringing up stuff that you'd probably forgotten?
Well, it was difficult to bring up things about the Robert Kennedy assassination because he was such a good friend of Claudine's and mine. And that was hard. That brought up a lot of wonderful memories, but it was part of my life, and I had to write it. And the same thing with my wife Claudine's shooting of her lover, and Aspen, and the trial, and all of that was very difficult to write about. But of course, I had to write about it because it was a great part of my life. She was the mother of my children, and I believed that she was innocent. I believed that it was an accident, complete accident. And I knew that she was being persecuted for being pretty, being with a famous skier living in Aspen, where he was an idol. And then the idea that it's from Aspen, Colorado, it just caught on around the world, and it became bigger than it ever should have been. And I wanted to make sure that, if I could, that she got a fair trial. And she did, and she was acquitted.
In reading these sections, these challenging times, like performing at Robert Kennedy's funeral, how do you find the strength to do that at a time when you're already low and distressed, and then you have to go on and be the star again?
Well, you're professional, and even though it's a tragic thing to have to go on and sing after Teddy gave the eulogy and everybody is broken up, that was very hard to do. But you just say, this is my job, this is what I'm supposed to do, and you do it. And you try and black out anything that gets in the way of your doing your job.
You've had an amazing life and a wonderful career that continues to flower and still be successful. People are still interested in the book and the CD. What do you want people to say about you? Do you want your music to speak for the name Andy Williams and for that to live on forever?
Yeah, I think I would like to be remembered for the television that I've done and for the records that I've made and for the enjoyment that I've given to millions of people around the world with live concerts. And, you can't ask for more than that. And those of us that are lucky enough to have made television or movies or records, long after we're gone, they're still playing our stuff, whether it's in some dim little nighttime television rerun or something, or on records. It goes on for quite a while. We still remember Nat King Cole and how great he was. I think we're very lucky.
I've always had the feeling that you've enjoyed doing it as much as we've enjoyed watching you doing it.
Well, I have. It's been a wild ride, but a very good one, and I've been very lucky.
Mr. Williams, it's an honour meeting you. You're such a big star, and you've been with me every day on the radio in my entire career. I can't remember a show where one of your songs hasn't come up somewhere, and I'd like to thank you for that. What a pleasure meeting you. Thank you for talking to me.
Thank you very much.